Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1979 AM. Today's date is September 25th, 2019, and the title of the episode is The Shot Across the Bow, the IMF Should Cease to Exist. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about protecting yourself. Nothing invokes full-scale panic like Wall Street panicking, but quietly, secretly, U.S. corporate insiders, they're preparing. CNN reported $600 million of stocks has been sold each day in August. This only happened previously before the 2008 crash. Meanwhile, gold is rocketing, and demand is at a 3-year high, according to the World Gold Council. Precious metals, gold, silver, as an IRA or 401k rollover will keep you safe and help you ride out the latest storm. Call Noble Gold right now at 877-646-5347, or you can hit the link below and you'll get the free gold and silver investment guide that has been downloaded over 50,000 times. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know there are many different phases to Trump's economic plan, and Trump needs to have the economy chugging along as we approach the 2020 election. This is number one, and we have to remember we need to split this into different parts because people are believing and thinking that this is an economy that Trump wants to continue with. This is an economy that Trump needs to continue with until the 2020 election. This is a central bank system. This is an illusion. He knows this. He knows it's a dying system. But the economic plan is working. The economy is responding exactly like Trump wants it to respond. Think about it. By lowering the rates, by restarting stimulus, the economy is going to take off. And we're already starting to see this. When we look at new home sales, what do we see happening here? Well, in July, they collapsed. But since the rates have been dropping, what happened? August new home sales, they rebounded. They rose around 7.1%. They only expected them to rise by 3.8%. But it was 7.1%. But they did revise the July numbers where it was a 12.8% drop, and they revised it to 8.6%. But still, the point is that but by lowering the rates and starting stimulus, you can see that everything is starting to rebound now. Trump needs this to happen. He is dictating to the Fed what needs to happen. It used to be where the Fed was dictating to the world what was going to happen next. Now that has completely changed. And we need to remember the following. This is not to fix the central bank economy. This is not to kick the can down the street so the central banks are able to reset the global economic system. The purpose of lower rates is to make the central bank obsolete. That's number one. Allow the economy to receive a jolt to allow the patriots to win the election in 2020. Once this is accomplished, more trade deals that benefit the U.S. will occur. Trump will go after the Fed. Trump will start making the case for sound money. Trump will say we need to audit the Fed. Now, just because I listed them like this doesn't mean it's going to happen in this order. But all of these things will happen as we come into Trump's second term. Why? Because he is free to do what he needs to do. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. He already had the first term. He already moved the blocks. He already set everything up. And he's ready for liftoff. And he needs to make more trade deals. And this is why China is now extending an olive branch, because they're starting to realize he's not going down. He's not going to be out of the race. He will win the election, and China is starting to realize this. And China is now extending an olive branch for the upcoming trade talks. China is on a meat buying spree, increasing beef, pork, and poultry. This is being seen as a goodwill gesture ahead of trade talks next month. Now, China had to dramatically reduce its pig herd. This is the world's largest by at least 33% in the last year after the deadly African swine fever virus devastated its farm belt. So it's reaching out to U.S. companies. One of them is Smithfield Foods and Tyson, and they're looking to purchase pork. And we can see that they're saying, okay, we will go ahead and do this. We will look at these companies. We'll buy it from the U.S. And we're extending an olive branch saying, listen, we want these trade talks to work out. Again, we'll have to see how this goes and how everything proceeds. But we know the main goal for Trump and the patriots is to remove the central bank system. And this cannot be done by one country. It has to be a coordinated effort. Trump started it off by pointing the finger at the Fed, contradicting them, telling them that they are worthless, that they're not benefiting the people, that they have no idea what they're doing, they're not helping the economy. We will soon see others, and when I say others, I'm talking about other countries, other leaders, other banking individuals come out and say, you know something? We don't need the central bank system anymore. Different countries are going to attack the central bank system. Remember, each country has a private Western central bank in their country. Then we have the ECB, the IMF, the BIS, and then the Rothschilds. They sit on top of all of this. But we are now hearing the first attack on a central bank, and it's coming from Russia. Now, we need to remember, the central bankers, they do not like Russia. They took over their private Western central bank. They paid off their debt, and they did everything completely opposite of what the central bank system wants a country to do. And the CEO of Russia's Sberbank, Herman Gref, has taken aim at the International Monetary Fund, saying the organization should cease to exist. He said, I don't have much to say about a higher audit institutions, but as for international organizations like the IMF, they must die. I think that the IMF is absolutely dead. He said that the international watchdog is incapable of meeting the need to reform, something which has been discussed for many years. Other international organizations should not be independent on the IMF, as it only offers old-fashioned ways to solve problems. Now, we need to remember that this individual, Herman Gref, he heads Russia's largest bank since 2007. And Russia has its own history with the IMF, as it had to borrow money amid a dire economic situation after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And he recalled that when he was the economy minister in the 2000s, the organization wanted Moscow to increase the tax burden, which already amounted to 41% of national GDP. Moscow owed the international credit billions and billions of dollars, but they refused to follow the recommendations on taxes. And you know what they did? Instead of pushing austerity on the people like the central bankers like you to do, because they want you to take on more debt, that's why they do this. They don't tell you to pay it down. They tell you, hey, you know what? Make the people pay more. You know what? Cut government expenses. Then we'll give you more debt. Russia did the opposite. They decided that they were going to pay off their debts. And in 2005, Russia managed to repay the loans to the IMF 3 years ahead of schedule. Think about this for a second. Now you're starting to understand why the central bank, the deep state, do not like Russia. Any country that goes against what the private Western Central Bank wants, and any country that pays them off, any country that takes control and says, you know something, we're not doing it your way. They don't like this because they're exposed. Think about it. They didn't listen to the IMF, and now they're better off. Look at those countries that listen to the IMF or the ECB or the Fed or any other central bank system. The countries are not better off. Yes, it might seem like it, but look at their debt. Look at all the austerity they had to implement. This is the big difference, and this is what they don't want the world to see. This is their kryptonite. A country that takes over the private Western Central Bank, pays off their entire debt, and no longer listens or no longer takes orders from a central bank. And we can see already the shot across the bow was just fired. We have Russia saying, you know something? The IMF should cease to exist. We have Trump saying, you know something? The Fed is clueless. They have no idea what to do. And this is why you can see, as Trump continually cuts rates and brings them to zero, what happens? The central bank system starts to lose control. When rates go to negative, what happens? The central bank loses more control. And then as they lose control, what can the leaders of each of these countries do? They can say, hey, look where we are today. Look what the central banks have done. They have no clue. They have no control. And this is coming. They're prepping the entire global environment for this. Remember, this is not just a one-country operation. It's going to be multiple countries working together. And we're going to start to hear more of this coming out of other countries. It could be from CEO from banks. It could be from the treasury departments in different countries. But we're going to start to hear this. And we're going to start to see which countries are on board. And we're going to see a lot of this coming up in 2020 because the patriots are now in control. Globalism has no future in this new economic system. Central bankers have no part in this new economic system. And that is where we're all moving. An economy, a world economy, without globalism, without the central banks. The world is going to flourish. And guess what? People are going to realize, wow, with the central banks, with globalism, we suffered. When we got rid of them, life is incredible. This is what they fear. This is their biggest fear. Because once people understand and feel this, they understand never again. Never again. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.